My name is Clara Johnson, and what I am about to share with you is not just another story. It is a testimony of an event that changed my life forever. On November 15, 2024, during a simple trip to the supermarket on Pine Street, I suffered an accident that left me clinically dead for 12 minutes and 34 seconds. During those minutes, I experienced something that transformed my understanding of prayer and spiritual warfare. It was not just a near-death experience. It was a profound revelation of the hidden power we carry within us. I remember that day clearly. The sky was gray, and the air had a scent of rain that seemed to foreshadow something grand. I was shopping, picking up items from a simple list: milk, bread, eggs. Common everyday things. Suddenly, I felt a sharp pain in my chest and everything around me started to spin. Before I could understand, I collapsed right there in the supermarket aisle, with the distant sound of concerned voices and hurried footsteps. When I woke up, I was no longer in the supermarket. Instead, I found myself in a different place, a space that transcends our human understanding of time and space. There was no pain, only a sense of peace and a silence that spoke more than any words. It was as if I were in a parallel dimension where everything I thought I knew about life and reality was being challenged. A comforting presence enveloped me, and I instinctively knew it was something divine. This presence, which I knew to be of celestial origin, embraced me with an unconditional love that was both overwhelming and reassuring. "Clara," the voice sounded like a whisper echoing through my being, "I have brought you here to show you the power you possess, a power you never imagined you had." I felt a mix of curiosity and fear, but I knew I was safe. Suddenly, scenes from my life began to flash before me, but they were not mere memories. I saw them with a spiritual clarity I had never experienced before. I saw myself in moments of prayer, often silently in my room, asking for protection and guidance. What I witnessed next was something that shook my soul deeply. I saw how my prayers had a direct impact on the spiritual realm, destroying evil strongholds that had been erected against me and my family. The first scene showed me kneeling beside my bed on an ordinary night, praying for the safety of my children. As I uttered the words, "In Jesus' name," it was as if an explosion of light pierced through the darkness, causing the shadows to retreat. I understood at that moment that my prayers were more than mere words. They were powerful weapons in the spiritual battle that occurs around us. I saw evil spirits building strongholds around my house, each representing different strategies to cause harm. But with every sincere prayer, the walls of these strongholds began to crumble. Jesus showed me specific moments when these spirits tried to prevent me from praying, increasing my fatigue or flooding my mind with trivial tasks. However, when I persisted, even exhausted, my prayer became a destructive force against their plans. As I watched these scenes, I realized that the obstacles to prayer were not merely physical or emotional but spiritual. I remembered times when, exhausted after a long day, I almost gave up on praying. Jesus showed me how, in those moments, evil spirits amplified my fatigue, making every movement to kneel a battle. But the victory came when I persisted, even briefly, and the strongholds around my house began to collapse, piece by piece. There was one night in particular that marked me deeply. I was especially tired, barely able to keep my eyes open. My mind was a whirlwind of unfinished tasks and responsibilities. However, something inside me insisted that I pray, even if only for a minute. As I did, the vision Jesus showed me was spectacular. Every word I uttered, no matter how simple, was like a beam of light piercing through the darkness, causing panic among the evil spirits. These visions continued to show me the direct impact of my prayers on the protection and well-being of my family. I saw moments when my prayer for my children's safety resulted in true spiritual earthquakes, dismantling demonic plans to introduce fear and insecurity into their lives. Every prayer for my marriage demolished months of subtle attempts to create discord between my husband and me, reinforcing our bond with renewed strength. What surprised me deeply was the revelation that prayers did not need to be long or eloquent to be powerful. Jesus showed me moments when, with a simple "Lord, protect my family," waves of light emanated from me, destroying the evil defenses around me. It was faith and sincerity, not the duration or complexity of the words, that had the real power. My grandmother always told me that praying was vital, but I never fully understood the depth of her words until that moment. I saw how her prayers made decades ago were still active in protecting my family. It was as if each generation was adding layers of spiritual protection, creating an unbreakable heritage that the enemy found difficult to penetrate. This understanding brought tears to my eyes, seeing how her prayers transcended time. Jesus also revealed to me the importance of group prayers. I saw scenes from our local church, where prayer meetings created a spiritual fortress that evil spirits could not penetrate. But when prayer diminished, those same spirits found gaps to establish strongholds. What always seemed like a mundane activity suddenly acquired a new meaning. Praying together was more than a religious practice. It was an act of protection and unity. Finally, Jesus showed me how the enemy tried to deceive me, making me believe that my prayers were unimportant. I saw how every little distraction or sense of fatigue was a tactic to hinder my prayers. But he reminded me that every word spoken with faith and sincerity had the power to destroy evil plans. "Remember," he said, "it is not about perfect words or the time spent, but about the heart and faith behind each prayer." As I continued my spiritual journey, I was shown how my faith and persistence in prayer had a profound impact on my life and the lives of those around me. Jesus revealed to me how prayers span generations, creating a powerful spiritual heritage that protected my family. It was as if each prayer added a layer of protection, making it more difficult for evil spirits to penetrate. I remembered the stories my grandmother used to tell about her own prayer experiences, and I saw how her prayers were still active, creating a protective shield for our family. One of the most emotional scenes I saw was a prayer service at our local church. As the group of believers united in prayer, a spiritual fortress formed around them, impenetrable to evil spirits. It was as if a wall of light surrounded the church, protecting everyone inside. But as the prayers diminished, these walls began to show cracks, allowing evil spirits to find ways in. I realized that group prayer was essential to maintaining spiritual protection and unity among believers. Jesus also showed me how, even in moments of distraction and fatigue, my prayers had a great impact. I saw how evil spirits gathered to plan distraction tactics, trying to keep me from praying. They knew that each prayer, no matter how small, could damage their plans. I was moved to see how, even when I thought my prayers were insignificant, they were actually creating cracks in the evil strongholds. One of the most revealing moments was when Jesus showed me the impact of prayers made in the family. I saw scenes of my family praying together before meals and at bedtime. Each of these prayers, no matter how brief, strengthened the spiritual protection around us. The evil spirits were especially frustrated with the children's prayers, whose pure faith often caused more damage to their plans than the prayers of adults. It was beautiful to see how the innocent faith of children had such great power. Moreover, Jesus showed me how my own prayers had evolved over the years. When I was a new believer, the distractions were more obvious. But as I matured in faith, the tactics of the evil spirits became more sophisticated, using even my own responsibilities and ministries to pull me away from deep prayer. This revelation made me realize the need to always be vigilant and committed to my prayer life. One of the most emotional visions was when Jesus showed me the prayers I had not said. I saw moments when I felt the Holy Spirit calling me to pray, but I ignored it. In the spiritual realm, These omissions were like gaps in a chain of protection and blessing. It was painful to see how my lack of prayer had left breaches for spiritual attacks. However, Jesus assured me that He would never stop calling me, always with patience and unconditional love. Finally, Jesus reminded me that prayer was not about perfection or duration, but about relationship. Every prayer was heard, every prayer mattered, and every prayer destroyed part of the enemy's work. With this new understanding, I returned to my body with a renewed sense of purpose and determination. I knew that prayer was a powerful weapon, a direct line to the throne of God, and a force that established His kingdom while destroying the evil strongholds. Returning to my body was a strange experience. I felt the weight of the real world back on my shoulders, and the noise and confusion of the supermarket invaded my senses. I heard voices around me, paramedics working to revive me, concerned customers murmuring, and the distant sound of sirens. Opening my eyes, I saw the fluorescent lights of the supermarket above me, and tears ran down my face as I realized the magnitude of what I had just witnessed. After being stabilized, I was taken to the hospital for observation. During recovery, lying in a white, sterile bed, I reflected on everything I had seen. I knew I couldn't keep this experience to myself. What I had witnessed in the spiritual realm needed to be shared. With a heavy heart, I decided that I would tell everyone about the transformative power of prayer, hoping to inspire others to persist, even in the most difficult moments. In the days following my experience at the supermarket, I noticed subtle but profound changes in my life. Every time I whispered the name of Jesus, I felt an overwhelming peace come over me. I knew that although I couldn't see the spiritual realm as I had during my experience, it was still there, and my prayers continued to have an impact. My view of prayer changed radically. It was no longer just a simple daily routine but a continuous and powerful battle against invisible forces. I shared my story with my family, who listened attentively and were moved. My children, in particular, were fascinated by the idea that their prayers had such great power. We began to pray together more often, creating a sacred moment in our home. I saw the immediate impact of these shared prayers, not only in the form of a sense of security but also in the growing unity and strength of our family. Jesus' words echoed constantly in my mind. Every prayer is heard, every prayer matters, every prayer destroys part of the enemy's work. I knew I needed to take this message beyond the walls of my home. I began to speak at our church, encouraging others to see prayer as the powerful weapon it is. I explained how even the simplest, most sincere prayer can have a profound impact and that true strength lies in faith and persistence. The response was surprising. Many came to me sharing their own struggles with prayer and how they felt discouraged or distracted. I encouraged them to persist, reminding them that they were not alone in this battle. Every prayer, no matter how small, had a purpose and power. I saw our community grow in faith and unity, and prayer meetings became powerful moments of collective spiritual warfare. Over time, my story spread, and I began to be invited to speak at other churches and prayer groups. Wherever I went, I shared my experience with emotion and sincerity, highlighting the importance of never underestimating the power of prayer. My goal was simple: to inspire a prayer revolution, where every person understood the magnitude of what happens when we bend our knees and raise our voices to God. As I shared my experience, I began to realize the impact my story was having on people. The reactions were both emotional and inspiring. Many people came to me sharing their own experiences of struggling with prayer. Tales of exhaustion, distraction, and discouragement were common, but there was also a renewed determination in their eyes. They were beginning to understand the true power of prayer, and it was transformative. My family and I continued to pray together regularly, and the change in our family dynamic was palpable. There was a new sense of peace and unity in our home. My children, once distracted and reluctant, were now enthusiastic about our prayer times. We felt a stronger divine presence in our home and knew we were more protected than ever. One Sunday, I was invited to share my testimony at our church. I stepped up to the pulpit with my heart pounding but with firm determination. I told everything from the accident at the supermarket to the visions Jesus showed me. The congregation listened in absolute silence, and by the end I could see tears in many eyes. The power of prayer had touched their lives in a new and powerful way. After the service, several people approached to thank me and share how my story inspired them to renew their prayer lives. An elderly lady told me that after hearing my testimony, she decided to start praying with her grandchildren every night, something she had stopped doing years ago. A young father said he began praying with his wife again and already felt a difference in his marriage. Seeing these changes and feeling the direct impact of prayers was extremely gratifying. As time went on, my story spread beyond our local community. I began receiving invitations to speak at other churches and events. Each new opportunity was a chance to share the message about the importance of prayer. In each place, I saw attentive, emotional, and sometimes incredulous faces as I narrated my experience. My mission was clear: to inspire a prayer revolution, where each person understood the magnitude of what happens when we bend our knees and lift our voices to God. The journey wasn't just about sharing my story but also about living the truth I had learned. I continued to face challenges and distractions, but now I was more equipped than ever to combat them with prayer. Every time a difficulty arose, I remembered Jesus' words and the vision of the evil strongholds collapsing with my prayers. This vision gave me strength and courage to continue, knowing that every prayer mattered. In the end, my experience in the supermarket was not just a tragedy transformed into triumph but a call to live a life of fervent and persistent prayer. Every prayer is a battle fought in the spiritual realm, an opportunity to establish God's kingdom and destroy evil strongholds. It is a lesson I will carry forever and will continue to share with the world, hoping that others will also discover the transformative power of prayer. As my message spread and touched more lives, I began to realize that my own journey of faith was evolving. Each time I shared my story, I felt a renewal of my commitment to prayer. Jesus' words echoed in my mind, reminding me that every prayer, no matter how simple, had the power to transform realities. I became even more dedicated to my prayer life, knowing that I was fighting significant spiritual battles every moment. My presentations at other churches and events were moments of deep connection and inspiration. People of different ages and backgrounds came to share how my story had renewed their faith and prayer lives. A young mother told me that after hearing my testimony, she started praying with her children every night, creating a stronger bond between them. A pastor shared that his congregation had experienced a revival after he encouraged the practice of fervent prayer. With every new testimony I heard, my heart filled with gratitude and humility. I knew it wasn't my story itself that caused the impact, but the message about the power of prayer and God's presence in our lives. I felt honored to be an instrument in God's hands, inspiring others to persist in prayer, even in the most challenging moments. In my own life, I continued to face challenges and distractions. There were days when I felt so tired that I could barely whisper a prayer. But in those moments, I remembered the visions Jesus showed me and the importance of perseverance. Even a quick, silent prayer was a powerful weapon against evil forces. I learned to trust more in God's grace and depend less on my own strength. My family also continued to grow spiritually. Our prayer times together became more frequent and significant. We felt God's presence in our home in a new and powerful way. My children, who once saw prayer as a boring routine, now participated with enthusiasm and faith. Every shared prayer reinforced our bond and protected us against spiritual attacks. One day, as we prayed together, I felt deep gratitude for the path God had guided us on. The experience in the supermarket, which began as a moment of tragedy, transformed into a journey of faith and discovery. I knew that this journey was far from over. Every day, new opportunities arose to share my story and encourage others to discover the power of prayer. During a prayer meeting at our church, I was approached by a young woman with tears in her eyes. She shared that after hearing my testimony, she had started praying more frequently, and for the first time in years, she felt a real connection with God. Her words were a powerful reminder that my experience was not in vain. Every person touched by the message of the power of prayer was a victory against the forces that try to separate us from the divine presence. Even so, I faced my own challenges. There were moments of doubt and fatigue, days when life felt overwhelming. But I knew that these moments were opportunities to practice what I preached. Every prayer whispered in despair, every word of faith spoken in doubt, was a brick added to the spiritual fortress I was building. My faith was continually tested and strengthened. Over time, I began to notice that my spiritual vision expanded beyond the church walls and the family environment. During walks around the neighborhood or even while shopping, I felt an urge to pray for the people around me. Every face I saw became a reminder that everyone was fighting their own, often invisible battles. I started silently praying for strangers, asking for protection, peace, and divine guidance in their lives. These moments of silent prayer brought a new depth to my own spiritual journey. I learned to see the beauty in small acts of faith and the importance of interceding for others, even when they did not know they were being remembered in prayer. I felt connected to an invisible network of souls, all united by the need for divine love and healing. One day while shopping at the supermarket, I clearly remembered the day my life changed. Every aisle, every shelf, seemed laden with deeper meaning. That place of pain and collapse had transformed into a symbol of resurrection and spiritual renewal. As I passed by the spot where I had collapsed, I said a brief prayer of gratitude, feeling a wave of thankfulness wash over me. Finally, I understood that my mission was not just to share my testimony but to live a life of fervent prayer and inspire others to do the same. Every prayer is a battle fought in the spiritual realm, an opportunity to establish God's kingdom and destroy evil strongholds. It is a lesson I will carry forever and will continue to share with the world, hoping that others will also discover the transformative power of prayer.